This last image reminded me of how joyful Gus is in every situation. So I'm sort of going to start with what I might have finished with. Like, you've been a dancer and choreographer and teacher for so long. How do you keep that sense of joy and that sense of like, I can't wait to be in a dance place?
That's really interesting and ironical because I have been depressed for the greater part of my adult life.
I've read about this.
Yeah. Yes. And, but I was just not happy. So when I would teach, I would demand what I expected from the students, but if they didn't do it, it was somehow a reflection of me.
And that made you angry.
And that made me angry. So now I'm still as demanding. Ask people that might know. But it's not their fault if they don't do it right, and it's not my fault if I don't get through to them the first time, and they're trying. So what's to be angry about?
One of the images I have of you is the very first Horse's Mouth we did in 1998. Is that right? Yeah, 98. And there was a film made of it, and there's you improvising like you are having the time of your life. And that's a great film. Is that film available somewhere? It's a documentary, yeah, The Horse's Mouth. So I want to go back to when you were in college. You were at MIT being an architecture student, but you were stealing away from classes and going to the Boston Conservatory to study with Jan Veen, who's someone we don't hear about so much in dance history, but he was an Ausdruckstanz person, wasn't he? Like a German expressionist?
Kind of,
dancer?
Yes. He studied with Delcros and
Wigman or Laban? Yeah.
And Laban.
Yeah.
So he taught us the Laban scales, all that, which was a great way to learn how to dance, because you learned in relationship to the space you were in instead of in relationship to your own body, the way the Graham technique is. It's all about your muscles and your emotions. And so the dancers that trained under Jan were very adaptable and very quick to pick things up. So
but what do you mean by the scale? What was the scale of?
Surround your body with a cube. So it's high, low, closed, open, back, front.
And that's the Laban thing.
And the Laban, 6 sides and 8 corners. And there are scales that do them in various orders, so they become like little exercises. And he also, another wonderful thing was that technique and improvisation and choreography were all part of the same picture.
And then somehow Donald McHale found you, or you found him.
I would study once a week in Boston. There was something called the Dance Circle, which would bring New York choreographers up. And I took to his classes because he moved very fast. And I was 6'3" at that time, so I was really big. And I loved to move fast. And so that appealed to him. Well, when he was... It
appeals to a lot of us, too. By the way, I didn't mention, Gus was such a striking dancer, whether he was dancing with Merce Cunningham or Martha Graham or one of his own companies, and everyone noticed how long his legs were and how fast he could move them.
Yes. Oh, my back wishes that they had moved a little slower. But anyway, so then in May of '61, I graduated from Tech, and I got a call.
What's from MIT?
And I got a call from Donnie or somebody inviting me to come to an audition in New York because he was doing a Broadway show, and he was looking for new dancers.
And he had seen you. He remembered you from the dance circle?
Yeah. Well, can't forget me, right? I moved fast and I was big.
Yeah.
And there was a handful of dancers, a group of dancers, the black dancers who did every black show in New York. And Kix and Company was really set out to be the first really integrated show. Oh. But it didn't go anywhere. Yeah. So I was in New York though, and I had an apartment. Most dancers found their soulmate choreographer.
Or a niche, like Judson was a niche. Yeah.
Yes. And so the Graham dancers didn't speak to the Lamone dancers, didn't speak to the Cunningham dancers, didn't speak to the ballet dancers, yada, yada, yada.
And you talked to
everybody. I did all of
everybody.
it, because it was dancing.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't particular. Because of Jan's training, picking up new styles was not a problem.
If the styles weren't a problem, and when I think of Gus going from the Martha Graham style to the Merce Cunningham style, that is a big stretch. But I want to ask you a sort of slightly different question. What was it like going from the world of Martha Graham to the world of Merce Cunningham?
When I was in the world of Martha Graham, I was clinging to the world of Merce Cunningham. Because when we started rehearsing, and when we would rehearse, everybody in the room would just scream at each other, insisting that their version of what Martha wanted was the right version. And this movement happened on this beat, in this note, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So while they were all, I was lying in the corner upside down, breathing, trying to get calm. Because the idea about about Graham work, is that you kind of use everything all the time because your core is always engaged in an emotional way, so that you're always using all your muscles. Well, with Merce, you can't use all your muscles all the time. You have to find your center and then figure out what it is you need, at minimum, to do the thing you have to do. So, and that was way more copacetic.
Sometimes I think of Graham did everything on an inhale and Merce did everything on an exhale.
Yeah, kind of, except when it got fast.
Oh.
Then you didn't have to breathe at all. I actually taught a Graham class one time. This must have been in the 70s. And I started standing up.
Oh my God, sacrilegious.
I did a Graham class. I did a Cunningham class at the Graham studio. Wow.
Well, I think a lot of the male dancers at the Graham Company were uncomfortable doing the floor work.
Oh my God, if you didn't have those hips, those absolutely open hips, all that floor work was just painful. I had bruises on every surface of my body that touched the floor, my knees, outsides of my feet, hips.
And so did you have to jump a lot with Merce too?
Yes. Yes, and I love to jump. Oh, that was so much fun. I had hang time, I had ballon, so I could get up, and Merce liked to jump and then change direction and then come down. And trying to defy gravity in that way was so much fun.
So talking about technique, did you ever have a technical, was there a problem where you were working, did you ever have a problem with placement or with feet or with obviously not jumping, but was there anything that you felt in technique class you had to work on?
Everything. Everything. My body, it turns out, was not made to dance.
Even though we all thought it was, you were such a natural dancer.
I certainly thought it was, because I couldn't stop. But in terms of anatomy and physiology, I guess, my body was not really amenable to dancing. So everything was hard to do physically. And fortunately, I had tons of energy, so I could force myself to do it, and I did. Which is, in fact, how, back in the 50s when I started studying, that was all we knew. Do it.
Yeah, there was no somatic practice back then.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I want to ask you about choreography because I want to know, you were an architecture student. How did that inform your choreography?
The making of the dances, the drawing of the lines and the plotting of the moves was kind of a therapy for me. But anyway, so my dances were all, and when I look at them now, there were moments that I thought, oh wow, I did that. That was pretty good. But most of them were kind of building a wall between me and emotional involvement with the world. And between me and my dancers, there wasn't very much communication.
Well, because you had I mean, Perron, Martha Graham, and Merce Cunningham, none of them were known for their friendly communication with the dancers.
This is true.
So a lot of African American dancers gravitated toward the Ailey juggernaut kind of. Did you ever feel that attraction to the Ailey work?
Not really. If he had asked me to dance with him, I would have, because I danced with everybody who asked me. But he never asked me, and it wasn't an ambition of mine to dance with him. And in fact, I wasn't so excited by his work as I was by Donnie's work, which seemed much more human, much more genuine, much more dealing with the truth of his life.
But before that, he made a piece called Games, and which you were in, I think?
No.
Oh, you weren't in it?
He would never let me be in games. He said I was too tall.
Oh, because it was about children.
It was about children.
It was supposed to be it was about games children play in the street. And there was one, because I looked at an old video of this, and I was struck by one kind of song, like a little ditty song about policemen.
Chickie the cop behind the rock. Chickie the cop.
Into the mic, please.
Chickie the cop behind the rock. Chickie the cop behind the rock. Chickie. And then somebody gets hurt by a policeman.
Donnie McHale was ahead of his time. That was 1953.
53, I think.
Something like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what he lived.
Yeah.
Up in Harlem, Irish cops. Better be careful.
And so you also, since you danced since you were little, but you also made puppets. Is there a John Cage puppet hanging around somewhere?
There might be. Let's see. John, you here? This is really fun.
And I'm sure all you know that John Cage influenced everyone from musicians to dancers to theater people to visual arts people.
Well, I really didn't do that much. I just was there. It was all about sound and possibilities. So I got cut from the version of the puppet show that we're doing this weekend. So I thought I would come along and just say hello. Hello. Yes, I talk about, in the puppet show, I talk about aging as a dancer, and I say, my line is, this is my line. When Merce Cunningham turned 40, the critics in London objected to his continuing to dance because they felt a dancer should be younger. Now that he's even older, no one seems to object any longer. I think they're all just interested in seeing how long this whole thing will last.
See, my overall, what is it called? My super objective, I guess, in life, is to be a performer. So I want to be in there doing it. And then making the work was, at the beginning, it was fulfilling that goal.
And you had other choreographers like Dwight Rhoden come to Paradigm?
Right. We had we commissioned a lot of choreographers for Paradigm. Jonah Beaucaire, Dwight Rhoden.
Kay
Cummings 3 times. Kate Weir, Wally Cardona, Larry Kegwin, Robert Battle. Ooh, I'm impressed.
You have to see the Kegwin video of Gus. Of Gus with a blanket and underwear.
In my tidy whities.
It is so funny.